Mars is the fourth planet from the Sun and has a distinct rusty red appearance and two unusual moons. The red planet is a cold, desert world with a very thin atmosphere. But the dusty, lifeless planet is far from dull. Phenomenal dust storms can grow so large they engulf the entire planet. Temperatures can get so cold that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere condenses directly into snow or frost, and Marsquakes regularly shake things up. It therefore comes as no surprise that this little red rock continues to intrigue scientists and is one of the most explored bodies in the solar system, according to NASA Science. Befitting the red planet's bloody color, the Romans named it after their god of war. In truth, the Romans copied the ancient Greeks, who also named the planet after their god of war Ares. Other civilizations also typically gave the planet names based on its color. For example, the Egyptians named it Herdesher, meaning the red one, while ancient Chinese astronomers dubbed it the fire star. A life form on Mars has not yet been confirmed, but I like to fantasize that we will find life on another planet. Do you think there's a good chance we'll find life on Mars? Let me know in the comments. Surface of the planet. The planet's cold, thin atmosphere means liquid water likely cannot exist on the Martian surface for any appreciable length of time. Features called recurring slope linea may have spurts of briny water flowing on the surface, but this evidence is disputed. Some scientists argue the hydrogen spotted from orbit in this region may instead indicate briny salts. This means that although this desert planet is just half the diameter of Earth, it has the same amount of dry land. The red planet is home to both the highest mountain and the deepest, longest valley in the solar system. Olympus Mons, the biggest volcano on Mars, is roughly 17 miles high, about 3 times as tall as Mount Everest, while the Valles Marineris reaches as deep as 6 miles and runs east-west for roughly 2,500 miles. These extremes will certainly cause problems during any missions to Mars. Scientists think the Valles Marineris formed mostly by rifting of the crust as it got stretched. Individual canyons within the system are as much as 60 miles wide. The canyons merge in the central part of the Valles Marineris in a region as much as 370 miles wide. Large channels emerging from the ends of some canyons and layered sediments within suggest that the canyons might once have been filled with liquid water. This is very interesting and will hopefully be investigated soon. This can give a nice picture of what life was like on Mars before. Maybe we can paint a picture of whether there was life before we could discover the planet. Mars also has the largest volcanoes in the solar system, Olympus Mons being one of them. The massive volcano, which is about 370 miles in diameter, is wide enough to cover the state of New Mexico. Olympus Mons is a shield volcano, with slopes that rise gradually like those of Hawaiian volcanoes, and was created by eruptions of lava that flowed for long distances before solidifying. Mars also has many other kinds of volcanic landforms, from small, steep-sided cones to enormous plains coated in hardened lava. Some minor eruptions might still occur on the planet today. Channels, valleys, and gullies are found all over Mars, and suggest that liquid water might have flowed across the planet's surface in recent times. Some channels can be 60 miles wide and 1,200 miles long. Water may still lie in cracks and pores in underground rock. A study by scientists in 2018 suggested that salty water below the Martian surface could hold a considerable amount of oxygen, which could support microbial life. However, the amount of oxygen depends on temperature and pressure. Temperature changes on Mars from time to time as the tilt of its rotation axis shifts. Many regions of Mars are flat, low-lying plains. The lowest of the northern plains are among the flattest, smoothest places in the solar system, potentially created by water that once flowed across the Martian surface. The northern hemisphere mostly lies at a lower elevation than the southern hemisphere, suggesting the crust may be thinner in the north than in the south. This difference between the north and south might be due to a very large impact shortly after the birth of Mars. The number of craters on Mars varies dramatically from place to place, depending on how old the surface is. Much of the surface of the southern hemisphere is extremely old, and so has many craters, including the planet's largest, 1,400-mile-wide Hellas Planitia, while that of northern hemisphere is younger and so has fewer craters. Some volcanoes also have just a few craters, which suggests they erupted recently, with the resulting lava covering up any old craters. Some craters have unusual-looking deposits of debris around them, resembling solidified mudflows, potentially indicating that the impactor hit underground water or ice. In 2018, the European Space Agency's Mars Express spacecraft detected what could be a slurry of water and grains underneath icy Planum Australis. Some reports describe it as a lake, but it's unclear how much regolith is inside the water. This body of water is said to be about 12.4 miles across. Its underground location is reminiscent of similar underground lakes in Antarctica, which have been found to host microbes. Late in the year, Mars Express also spied a huge icy zone in the red planet's Korolev crater. This is a great discovery. This may mean that there may be a living organism on the red planet. Hey, cool that you're still watching. Let's move on to the video soon. But would you first like to help me by subscribing to my channel? Thank you so much. Martian moons. The two moons of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, were discovered by American astronomer Asaph Hall over the course of a week in 1877. Hall had almost given up his search for a moon of Mars, but his wife Angelina urged him on. He discovered Deimos the next night, and Phobos 6 days after that. He named the moons after the sons of the Greek war god Ares. Phobos means fear, while Deimos means route. Both Phobos and Deimos are apparently made of carbon-rich rock mixed with ice and are covered in dust and loose rocks. They are tiny next to Earth's moon and are irregularly shaped, since they lack enough gravity to pull themselves into a more circular form. The widest Phobos gets is about 17 miles, and the widest Deimos gets is roughly 9 miles. Both Mars moons are pockmarked with craters from meteor impacts. The surface of Phobos also possesses an intricate pattern of grooves, which may be cracks that formed after the impact created the moon's largest crater, a hole about 6 miles wide or nearly half the width of Phobos. The two Martian satellites always show the same face to their parent planet, just as our moon does to Earth. It remains uncertain how Phobos and Deimos were born. They may be former asteroids that were captured by Mars' gravitational pull, or they may have formed in orbit around Mars at roughly the same time the planet came into existence. Ultraviolet light reflected from Phobos provides strong evidence that the moon is a captured asteroid, according to astronomers at the University of Padova in Italy. Phobos is gradually spiraling toward Mars, drawing about 6 feet closer to the red planet each century. Within 50 million years, Phobos will either smash into Mars or break up and form a ring of debris around the planet. Mars climate. Mars is much colder than Earth, in large part due to its greater distance from the Sun. The average temperature is about -80 degrees Fahrenheit, although it can vary from -195 degrees Fahrenheit near the poles during the winter to as much as 70 degrees Fahrenheit at midday near the equator. The carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere of Mars is also about 100 times less dense than Earth's on average, but it is nevertheless thick enough to support weather, clouds, and winds. The density of the atmosphere varies seasonally, as winter forces carbon dioxide to freeze out of the Martian air. In the ancient past, the atmosphere was likely significantly thicker and able to support water flowing on the planet's surface. Over time, lighter molecules in the Martian atmosphere escaped under pressure from the solar wind, which affected the atmosphere because Mars does not have a global magnetic field. This process is being studied today by NASA's MAVEN, Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution mission. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter found the first definitive detections of carbon dioxide snow clouds, making Mars the only body in the solar system known to host such unusual winter weather. The red planet also causes water ice snow to fall from the clouds. The dust storms on Mars are the largest in the solar system, capable of blanketing the entire red planet and lasting for months. One theory as to why dust storms can grow so big on Mars is because the airborne dust particles absorb sunlight, warming the Martian atmosphere in their vicinity. Warm pockets of air then flow toward colder regions, generating winds. Strong winds lift more dust off the ground, which in turn heats the atmosphere, raising more wind and kicking up more dust. These dust storms can pose serious risks to robots on the Martian surface. For example, NASA's Opportunity Mars rover died after being engulfed in a giant 2018 storm, which blocked sunlight from reaching the robot's solar panels for weeks at a time. Mars orbits around the Sun. Mars lies farther from the Sun than Earth does, so the red planet has a longer year, 687 days compared to 365 for our home world. The two planets have similar day lengths, however. It takes about 24 hours and 40 minutes for Mars to complete one rotation around its axis, versus 24 hours for Earth. The axis of Mars, like Earth's, is tilted in relation to the Sun. This means that, like Earth, the amount of sunlight falling on certain parts of the red planet can vary widely during the year, giving Mars seasons. However, the seasons that Mars experiences are more extreme than Earth's because the red planet's elliptical, oval-shaped orbit around the Sun is more elongated than that of any of the other major planets. When Mars is closest to the Sun, its southern hemisphere is tilted toward our star, giving the planet a short, warm summer, while the northern hemisphere experiences a short, cold winter. When Mars is farthest from the Sun, the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the Sun, giving it a long, mild summer, while the southern hemisphere experiences a long, cold winter. The tilt of the red planet's axis swings wildly over time because it's not stabilized by a large moon. This situation has led to different climates on the Martian surface throughout its history. A 2017 study suggests that the changing tilt also influenced the release of methane into Mars' atmosphere, causing temporary warming periods that allowed water to flow. Future human missions. Robots aren't the only ones getting a ticket to Mars. A workshop group of scientists from government agencies, academia, and industry have determined that a NASA-led manned mission to Mars should be possible by the 2030s. With the recent developments in artificial intelligence, it may well be that there will be a mission with an AI technique. In late 2017, the administration of President Donald Trump directed NASA to send people back to the moon before going to Mars. NASA is working on this goal via a program called Artemis, which aims to establish a sustainable, long-term human presence on and around the moon by the late 2020s. The lessons and skills learned from this lunar effort will help pave the way for putting goods on Mars, NASA officials have said. Robotic missions to the red planet have seen much success in the past few decades, but it remains a considerable challenge to get people to Mars. With current rocket technology, it would take at least 6 months for people to travel to Mars. Red planet explorers would therefore be exposed for long stretches to deep space radiation and to microgravity, which has devastating effects on the human body. Performing activities in the moderate gravity on Mars could prove extremely difficult after many months in microgravity. Research into the effects of microgravity continues on the International Space Station. NASA isn't the only entity with crewed Mars aspirations. Other nations, including China and Russia, have also announced their goals for sending humans to the red planet. Elon Musk, the founder and CEO of SpaceX, has long stressed that he established the company back in 2002 primarily to help humanity settle the red planet. SpaceX is currently developing and testing a fully reusable deep space transportation system called Starship, which Musk believes is the breakthrough needed to get people to Mars at long last. Thanks for watching my video about Mars. Do you have any questions? Feel free to ask them in the comments. Do you want to stay informed of all earthly and space technology and developments? Then subscribe to my channel. Stranger Binge, subscribe and find out.